All right. Shabbat Shalom. We're in Genesis chapter 16, Bereshit 16, starting at verse 1. It says, Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bore him no children. She had a servant, a Mitzrayite, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. Sarai said to Abram, See now, Yahuwah has restrained me from bearing. Please go into my servant. It may be that I will obtain children by her. Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. Verse 3, Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, the Egyptian, her servant, after Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to Abram, her husband, to be his wife. All right. Just want to take this in real quick, not to read over it. I know that in my years of Christianity, there was no pause here and breakdown explanation. We probably read right over this. Matter of fact, I don't even remember anybody talking about this part. Usually people will go right into the covenants and right into the birth of Isaac. But here's the reality of this. This culturally existed. And then we even have later on in the Torah of Moshe, the law of Moses, there are actually laws for having multiple wives and how to treat them and not to mistreat and show favoritism, things like this in the Torah. So Yahuwah actually created laws and instructions around this cultural reality. So it's not a sin for a man to take on another wife. Okay, it's not a sin. We don't believe it's a sin in this assembly here. A point that was brought up, my wife brought up that here the woman initiates this, not the man. I don't believe that this is a commandment now that a woman must initiate, but it is interesting that in this particular instance, we do see the woman initiating this and not Abram. My assumption, this is just an assumption, this is not a fact, but I assume if the woman had to initiate it, Abraham probably wasn't interested in this idea, because I would like to believe that this is not the first time he knew his wife had a servant. I'm sure that was part of their home, part of their family. Husband, wife, servant. She was part of the family. And my question would be, why didn't Abraham initiate this himself? My assumption is, and it's an assumption, I'm not saying this is commandment, I'm just thinking Abram's the one that heard directly from Yahuwah. He's been given the covenants of promise. You're going to have many children. Your children are going to be like the stars in the heavens and the sand of the sea. So Abraham, I'm sure, is holding on to that promise, and this is the wife that I have. He promised me I'm going to have a lot of children, and he's believing it's going to come from his wife. But here the woman seems to initiate a plan B. All right. I hope I'm not missing anything. Okay, my wife brought up also that they were in agreement. There was agreement here. Okay. I guarantee if only one person is in agreement on this idea, there's going to be problems. That's just common sense. Something as deep as marriage, as deep as marriage, if you're not in agreement on something like polygyny or polygamy, however you want to pronounce it, people say it's polygyny, all right, it's the proper word. But if the two couples are not in agreement, there's going to be a lot of problems, a lot of fighting, a lot of contention, jealousy, strife, unless the one in disagreement humbles himself and is able to go along with it. That's the only way it'll work out. But here we see that there is agreement. Okay. Who wants to go next? Ezzy? Ezzy, you're up, and then D-Rail. No? Okay, let me take your hand down. Go ahead, Ezzy.
Yeah, I just had a cross-reference. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 3 to 5. It says, let the husband render to his wife what is her due, and likewise also the wife to her husband. Which that made me think twice about that. I know we've read that before, but I know a woman's desire is to bear children. So I'm wondering if maybe that's what her due is versus the husband. But anyways, the wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. And likewise, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. Do not deprive one another except with agreement for a time to give yourself to fasting and prayer and come together again so that Satan does not try you because of your lack of control. So I just wanted to bring a cross-reference that there has to be agreement there. But also, I think it's interesting that it says that he listened to the voice of Sarah and that there was a point made there versus Abram going to Yahuwah with what his wife had said to get counsel or to, confirm with the father if that's what should be done. He just kind of went with what she said. So
Yeah.
just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, we don't see a dialogue between him and Yahuwah. We don't see him going, I wonder if he did or he didn't. It definitely looks like he didn't. Thank you for that. All right, let's keep going. Verse 4, he went in to Hagar, and she conceived. When she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. See that? Even though there was agreement, you still got some enmity going on. This is not easy. Maybe Hagar didn't agree. That's a good point. My wife said maybe Hagar wasn't in agreement. There was somebody in disagreement here. And she conceived. When she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. Sarai said to Abram, this wrong is your fault. I don't know what you have in your translation, but that's what I have in mine. This wrong is your fault. My wife has in her translation, my wrong be upon you.
Was that verse 5?
That's verse 5. Yes, sir.
Okay. You want to hear the Septuagint?
Yes.
All right. It says, and Sarah said to Abram, I am injured by you.
I am injured by you. You hurt me. You wounded me. I can't believe you did this. You told me to, woman. Yeah, but you should have said no. I wanted to hear the words, whatever the emotional. You know how y'all women are sometimes. You're telling us one thing, but you really want us to do the opposite because for whatever reason, whatever's going on in your mind.
Abram's
I just wanted to hear the words. I told you not to talk to me, but I really wanted you to talk to me. I wanted to hear that you wanted to be with me. You wanted to spend quality time with me, even though I told you to leave me alone. I really wanted you to chase me down.
Hey, could you imagine Abram's like buddies be like, how did you not see that coming?
Oh, she told me to. All right, so this is what's going on. So obviously there's the shalom is being attacked. Okay, verse 5. I gave my servant into your bosom, and when she saw that she had conceived, she despised me. May Yahuwah judge between me and you. Dang. Jeez. Why am I at fault for what this woman is doing? You know? You should be mad at her, not me. She's the one in the wrong. The servant I'm talking about, you know? Well, I don't know. Let's think about that a little bit, right? Because the whole point of her having a child is for Sarai to claim that child as her own. That's not easy. What mother wants to say, yeah, I'm gonna have a baby so I could just give it away to somebody else? I mean, that would have to be the choice of that person doing that, right? Like, yes, I want to give you a child and let you adopt this child as your own. Yes. But if it's not your choice, I can see how that is frustrating. So I understand. Verse 6. See, some people don't want to pause and talk about this stuff. It's uncomfortable. Some people just read right over it like it doesn't exist. But it exists. It's here, y'all. Verse 6. But Abram said to Sarai, behold, your maid is in your hand. Do to her whatever is good in your eyes. Sarai dealt harshly with her, and she fled from her face. Does anybody have anything different for verse 6? Sarai dealt harshly with her.
Afflicted, pretty much the same thing.
Verse 7. Yahuwah's angel found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain on the way to Shur. He said, Hagar, Sarai's servant, where did you come from? Where are you going? She said, I am fleeing from the face of my mistress Sarai. Yahuwah's angel said to her, return to your mistress and submit yourself under her hands. Wow. Wow. What does this say? We got to ask ourselves the question. If an angel from Yahuwah is saying this, what does this say about the situation? What does this say about how Yahuwah thinks, how he works, his covenants, marriage, bearing children?
Fair. He's fair.
He's fair. In a human mind, I'm looking at this. My human side is reading this, and I'm looking at this like, this doesn't seem fair. In my human heart, my human mind and my human heart is saying Hagar is innocent in this. Number one, she's a servant, so she's already at the bottom of the totem pole. She's working. She's here to work. She's not the wealthy. She is the servant. I'm here to work. And now I got to be my master's wife. And then I got to give my child to you. And now I'm being told by an angel that I have to submit to you.
Blessed are the meek.
This says a lot about, now I'm not about abuse. I am not about abuse. I do not promote that in any way, shape, or form. I do not allow that in this assembly. If I find out anybody is mistreating their spouse, I address that immediately. And if it's not getting dealt with, you're gone. You're gone. I don't care how many cries and hugs we've had in the past, how many experiences we've had together. I will burn that bridge like there's no tomorrow. Okay? I just want to make that very clear on record. I don't play around with that. And D-Rail has been here to see how I deal with people who are mistreating their spouses.
That's right.
All right. However, what I do see here is how serious Yahuwah is about submitting to your authorities. There is a ranking here. We're not all created equally. That reality is reflected in heaven, and it is also reflected on earth. Yahuwah is the top. Everyone is to submit to him in heaven. The angels, the cherubim, seraphim, everybody is to submit to him. And we know scripturally, not all the sons of Elohim submitted to him. Some chose to go a different way. Okay? There's different rankings. There's different angels. There's rankings of angels. There's chief angels. Okay? There are, and on earth, likewise, there's rankings. A husband is above a wife on the earth. He is the head of the woman. That's just the way it works. A servant is not above his master. I have a boss at work. I can't usurp any authority over my boss. I can't tell him what to do. I can suggest things. I can't tell him what to do. You know, even if my boss is harsh to me, you know, if I want to keep that job, I need to submit to him. You know, there's ways that I can go about talking with my boss and expressing my disappointment in however he addressed me or however he talked to me. There's a way to do that. Okay. But here, for some reason, and I'm sure we're going to find out if we haven't found out already. I think part of the reason why we're seeing this, just building upon what we've been reading so far, Yahuwah made a covenant. He made a covenant with Abram, you know, that he's going to be the father of many nations, right? Now he's married. And I don't think we've seen much about marriage other than we got Adam and Eve, we got Adam and Hua in the garden, right? That's the first marriage we see. He says, "Leave your father and your mother, cling to your wife." That is the number one covenant on the number one relationship on earth is marriage. It is the number one example of our relationship with our Creator, and that's why it's the first family dynamic you see. You see a husband and a wife. You don't see a mother and a father on earth. Even though if we did, again, that mother and that father wouldn't be a mother and a father without being married. So marriage would be the first family dynamic, unified family covenant dynamic. It's the top. It's the top of the totem pole. So Yahuwah takes marriage very seriously. Okay, he takes it very seriously. We saw it a few chapters back where the Egyptians took on Sarai because they thought that that was Abram's sister, and that that man was addressed by, I believe, Yahuwah's angel is what we read, right? And he's like, "Why did you do this thing to me?" You know what I mean? Like, you almost brought a curse upon my house by not telling me this woman was your wife. And that's how serious Yahuwah takes marriage. So what happens here? We just read that Abram took on Hagar. Actually, Sarai gave over Hagar to Abram to be his wife. There is covenant now here made. And Yahuwah takes that very seriously. And so Hagar, and I understand and I empathize with Hagar. I do. I empathize with her situation. But she's now fleeing, running from the situation, you know, which I don't like, human wise, I don't blame her. Sarai dealt harshly with her. Instead of Sarai empathizing with Hagar, there is now harshness being dealt with. And so Hagar runs away. I don't know. Just to me, it has something to do with respecting your elders and your authorities, even when they're harsh. Sounds familiar, right? Sounds like something we read about in the New Testament. Jeremy and Amani. Actually, I had a whole bunch of hands here. I lost track because I was talking. I don't remember who went up first, but I will let the Roy family go first. Go ahead.
We're allowed to cross-reference, right?
Yeah, let's do it. Cross references. You're allowed to do that. Yep.
Okay, 1 Peter 2:18 to 25. Household servants, submit yourselves to your masters, showing them full respect, and not only those who are kind and considerate, but also those who are harsh. For it is a grace when someone, because he is mindful of Elohim, bears up under the pain of undeserved punishment. For what credit is there in bearing up under a beating you deserve for doing something wrong? But if you bear up under punishment, even though you have done what is right, Elohim looks on it with favor. Indeed, this is what you were called to, because the Messiah too suffered on your behalf, leaving an example so that you should follow in his steps. I think I'm going to stop there.
Excellent cross reference. I'm not going to lie. Now, I'm not saying, I don't believe that Yahuwah, I talk about this all the time in this fellowship, right? I talk about grace and turning the other cheek versus justice. And I'm always talking about this subject, and I like balance. I see both. I see Yahuwah in scripture embracing justice and vengeance through humans, allowing humans to take vengeance and justice. But I also see the taking the lashes. I see the taking the innocent blows and still enduring and persevering. We see both of those. So there is a reward for that. There is a reward for that. But I'm not preaching any longer, because I did in my Christian years. I'm not preaching that this is what we should only do every single time. You might be called to speak up and to speak against something and change a situation and change a whole community, change a whole assembly by you speaking up and taking a stand versus a prolonged years of a narcissistic Jezebel leader. You know what I'm saying? So we got to be very prayerful and consider what Yahuwah wants us to do in the situation. Here, an angel is stopping Hagar. I think that's pretty hard. You know, if you're asking Yahuwah, what do you want me to do in this situation? And an angel stops you and says, you need to go back. I think that's pretty hard to resist that as an answer of prayer, or is it of Yahuwah or not? You know, but that's a good cross reference, but I like to just stay well balanced. You know, I don't approve of abuse. I don't approve of that. I don't approve of leaders in assemblies, pastors, shepherds abusing their authority. I don't approve of bosses abusing their authority either. But just like this passage says, Messiah did endure. He did endure persecution. He endured innocent blows of judgment and slanderings. And if we're going to relate with him, if we're going to suffer as he suffered, that's something we might want to take a few blows every once in a while. Be quiet, take it, and let Yahuwah fight our battle. You know, there might be a good reward in that. Ezzy.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that with what we read in Corinthians about, you know, the duties of a wife and a husband, her fleeing would also be fleeing her responsibility as a wife, and also, you know,
That's a good
Abraham's
point.
duty as a husband to be taking care of her, and you know, so it looks as if she's having an opportunity here to receive, you know, her blessing, because if she leaves, then she's leaving behind what her due is as a wife, and as having an heir. Um, but also it reminds me, with that messenger going to her, it reminds me, I think it's in Leviticus where it says that this is the Torah for those that, the strangers that even dwell with you. So it also looks as if that she is now under this promise or under this covenant because she
Absolutely.
dwelled with them and also has borne a seed. So she can't just, you know, leave that. At least Yahuwah is not allowing her to. So
That is the part I think we miss with the human emotion reading this story. We miss that. We forget, like, even me, I'm Darian El Serrano, me, I'm reading this and my human emotion side is like a bit furious about the situation. I'm not going to lie. And that side of me forgets about the covenants, forgets about everything that we've been reading leading up to this point, you know, but we can't, you know, that there's a bigger story behind all this. So Yahuwah honors covenant, and, you know, those who are under that, you're under it, you know, so don't flee your responsibility. So yes, I don't see here that she fled with her child either.
nor did she get a proper bill of divorce. There's a process to everything. You know, you can't
My wife is saying she's pregnant here. She didn't give birth yet. Okay. So I like what you said, as he very well said. Milo, and then D-Rel. Nah, I don't want to do that. Well, you're going to have to come over here, like move closer right here, like sit over here. I'm not going to repeat what you're saying. I'm not doing that today. D-Rel, I'm going to let you go first. Go ahead.
I was going to read a cross reference from Ecclesiastes 10:4. If the spirit of the ruler rises against you, do not leave your post, for calmness lays to rest
Wow.
great faults. Another way of not leaving you and your duties, you know, Yahweh has a will.
I think that's a pretty good cross reference. I think that applies. That's good, D-Rel. Very good.
I guess my question laid out to you guys, because we're all talking about covenants and she's leaving and such, but Abram will eventually discard her and put her away. So, what are your? I'm just gonna pose that as a question. What are your thoughts in regards to that? Since he will send away his wife, and whom he has his technical firstborn, I'll say, with.
I would like to get there when we get there. Yeah. I'm trying to deal with what's going on now. Let's embrace what's happening now in the moment. When we get to that, we'll talk about it. All right. Amani.
Sorry, one more. Chapter 3 of First Peter says,
All right.
in the same way, wives, submit to your husbands, so that even if some of them do not believe the word, they will be won over by your conduct without your saying anything, as they see your respectful and pure behavior.
Not an easy one to swallow. Not an easy one to swallow. But it sounds good to me. Sounds good to me. I've actually seen that work. I know of marriages where the husbands came around, finally woke up. Okay. I've also seen where it hasn't worked. And it's developed nothing but stress and depression and anxiety on the believer, which affects their health. So, but yep, that's another hard truth to swallow. That's a hard one to swallow. Something pretty good to practice, as long as that husband ain't trying to force you to worship other gods and, defile Yahuwah's word and make you do things that's against Yahuwah, if that relationship is workable, that husband, I just don't believe like you do, babe. I don't believe like you do. You do your thing with the whole church, the whole Bible thing, the whole Yahuwah Shabbat thing. I'm not with it. You could, like, you can work with that. You know what I
Sounds
mean?
like my house.
Yeah, the spouse is giving you the space, like, I'm just not with it. Then you do your duty as a wife, or you do your duty as a husband. You still love them. You still build that relationship. You cultivate that relationship. But if there's like contention and like idols coming in the house, and we got to remember what the Torah and the prophets has to say about those kind of marriages, but another good one. Thank you. That was a great, and that's from Peter. That's not Paul. That's Peter. So you can't say, oh, Peter's always giving those fluffy grace things. No, Peter gave you some too. Peter gave you some, endure, have grace and mercy too. So very good cross reference, Amani. Thank you for that. All right. Let us continue. So that was verse 9. Yahuwah's angel said to her, return to your mistress and submit yourself under her hands. This is not a demon. It's not a Satan disguising himself as an angel of light. I believe what the scripture says. This is Yahuwah's angel. All right. Verse 10, Yahuwah's angel said to her, I will greatly multiply your offspring, that they will not be counted for multitude. Look at that. She's being given a reward if she submits, despite her disgust in the situation. Verse 11, Yahuwah's angel said to her, behold, you are with child. So my wife, like she said, was correct. She's pregnant, and she ran away while she was pregnant. She didn't give birth yet. Yes, Yahuwah's angel said to her, behold, you are with child and will bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because Yahuwah has heard your affliction. Let us look at Ishmael. Okay. And again, you have no Yah in here. You have El, which is for God. Ishmael. It means God will hear. Origins come from H8085 and H410. H8085 is Shema. Shema, Yisrael. Hear, O Yisrael, right? Shema, hear, listen, obey. The second one is H410, which is L. All right. Again, I think something I preached about before, I know it's a contradiction, not a contradiction. It is controversial. My Exodus 6:3 stance, Exodus 6:3, I don't believe that Yahuwah revealed his name Yahuwah until Moses' time. But even though we're seeing Yahuwah in these passages, I believe that's a translation thing that's happening. The writers of Genesis are writing retrospectively, so the writers know Yahuwah's name, and I believe they're putting in Yahuwah's name where it would have been El Shaddai, God Almighty. So here, Hagar's naming her child rightfully. El hears, God hears. Okay, but again, that's just I could be wrong about Exodus 6:3. I'm very open to being wrong. But there you go. His name shall be Ishmael, because Yahuwah has heard your affliction. He will be like a wild donkey among men. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. He will live opposed to all of his brothers. What is this about? Derail.
Cross-reference also says, well, in the eSword, wild, the word rendered wild also denotes the wild ass, description of which animal in Job 39:5-8 affords the best representation of the wandering or lawless. Could be lawless.
Lawless, huh?
Freebooting life. Yeah.
Interesting. So we get one promise that's good. One is that this woman, she's going to have many children, right? Multiply your offspring so that they will not be counted, right? But then you have what seems to be not so good news, that this child is going to be like a wild donkey. And his hand will be against every man, and every man's hand will be against him. I mean, this guy is going to be problematic. Sounds like this guy's going to be very controversial, problematic. He will live opposed to all of his brothers. I don't know, man. That it seems to be a ethnic kind of cultural prophecy here. Some say that Ishmael would represent the Iranian, Palestinian, Middle Eastern kind of people.
Yep. Bedouin, Arabs.
Arabs, yep, thank you. Listen, I'm not good with all that kind of stuff, man. I really don't like dealing with this ethnic stuff, man. But, if this is true, then definitely Israelites would look similar to some of these guys. Wouldn't you agree? That Israelites would look half Egypt. Israelites, let me put it this way. If the Arabs are the Ishmaelites, Arabs are partial Egyptian and partial Hebrew. So Israelites who are supposedly 100% Hebrew would look a little bit like them. Wouldn't you agree? So I don't know what the real Israelites look like today. I believe Israelites are scattered and mixed with different kinds of ethnicities. So for all you know, you might be looking at an Israelite right now, the one talking. There are people in here that might be an Israelite, and one has very white skin. She might be an Israelite. You don't know. You don't know. Okay? So I don't like playing those games, but that's what I've heard. Most scholars that I've read in my research of this topic, they say Ishmael would represent the Arab people. Okay? And if that's true, I mean, the Arab people are kind of controversial. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, they're pretty, the Muslims, I mean, the gas, the oil, everybody wants the oil from that land. And
they even say they claim to be descendants of Abraham.
Yes, they do. Yep. Muslims do, according to their Quran, they do proclaim to be descendants of
Abraham.
Yep. So there is a connection there. Verse 13. So she called the name of Yahuwah who spoke to her. Quote, you are a God, El, right? Who sees For she said, have I even stayed alive after seeing him? Okay. Therefore, the well was called Ber Lahai Roy, which means well of the one who lives and sees me. For me, it's revealing that this woman didn't know the name Yahuwah just by the way her child is named and by what she called this well, or what the well was called. To me, it looks like she knew him as the creator, God, the God Almighty, the God of the universe. That's what she knew this person as. It is between Kadesh and Bered. Verse 15, Hagar bore a son for Abram. Abram called the name of his son, whom Hagar bore, Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abram. Okay, 86 years old. I don't know if he still looked young because they lived long years in those days. So, but 86 in my years is very old. I think there's actually scriptures that say Abraham was old, right? And the oldest. So I guess back in those days, people were old for a long time. Your oldness endured. You had back aches and pains for hundreds of years. Oh, that's funny. Well, that's all I got for this chapter. Anybody got anything else they want to add or ask? Any comments, questions? What do we learn from this chapter?
I was going to make a comment. You know, it says in scripture that Yahuwah knows what we need before we even ask, and it doesn't mention, you know, her prayers or what her prayers were. Sometimes it mentions what other people are praying, but it doesn't mention her prayers. So it makes me wonder, you know, was she praying internally when she was by that well, or is Yahuwah remembering the things that were said in the presence of Sarah in her own, you know, her own timing or during the harshness? But either way, Yahuwah saw the affliction or heard the affliction, and there's no mention of her own words being spoken. So it just shows how intimate he is with, you know, his people, and he looks out for us. So that was just interesting.
Thank you for that. Yeah, the lesson here, I see a big lesson in submission in this chapter. Submitting, not really. Sometimes our flesh, or all the times, our flesh gets in the way of Yahuwah's will and what his purpose is in a situation. And it's very important that we try to be in tune with what Yahuwah is saying in a situation. Either way, Yahuwah will make it known, right? If we decide to go the wrong way, I think we'll see the fruit of it, or there might be a result of that. Maybe we could look back and be like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have went that way. But either way, it's very important, you know, to stay prayed up in situations. What do you want to do? And what do you want me to do in this situation, Yahuwah? I feel like leaving. I feel like quitting. I feel like running. You know, do you want me to stay? You know, so that would definitely be the smartest, wisest thing to do, is to pray, Yahuwah, let your will be done, not mine. I see a seriousness on marriage, on covenant in this chapter. Yahuwah takes his covenant that he makes very seriously. He takes marriage seriously. So for those thinking about having another wife, think very hard and long about it. Pray about it. See if that's what Yahuwah wants. Because once you do it, you know, that is a heavy responsibility. It's not something to play around with. That's what we got from this chapter. Milo.
And I also don't think Hagar is as innocent as we think, just because when Sarah said and she began to despise her mistress in her eyes, if her demeanor or her words, her actions didn't change, then that wouldn't have, I feel it wouldn't have been noted. So there was definitely something different that Hagar took a different stance. Don't know what that stance was, don't know what that actually fully looks like, but it took enough of a difference to make Sarah respond the way she did so strongly, as well as at the end of the day, sometimes we ask for something we really don't want it, or in the sense of if I was Sarah, There could be jealousy in her own heart. I don't know. This is now. I'm just going into playing into our times right now and going into what do you call it? The realm of assumption. But sometimes we ask for something or say something and we're really not ready for it. You know what I'm saying? Like to have, your now, yes, culturally speaking, this was done. I'm not gonna deny that. But it also doesn't mean that every woman or man was actually for it. Even nowadays, culturally speaking, it is still done. And there's still documentaries about some women are not for it, even though their husband has multiple wives, and they're still like, I'm not for it, but that's my husband. So even that creation of jealousy comes in here. Polygyny is not a game to be played with. It's not just, yeah, I just want more children and all this stuff. You really got to think about how your household will handle this. When you look at Leah and Rachel, sisters, blood sisters, and I know we're not there yet, but going at each other's throats, and how they do it. I want to get pregnant. I want to get pregnant. Why you not getting me pregnant? Why now you're stressing out your husband? I'm not God. I'm not the creator. So, and now you're going before Yahuwah, and he remembers, and he's merciful in that. And now you bring in two other women, the other concubines, the other wives, that were brought in. So it's not, especially as those coming into this truth and such. There's some men that just go for it just because it's permissible. It doesn't mean it's beneficial. You know what I'm saying? And it really can do more damage than good, because you got to think about the areas of jealousy. Now, I'm not saying jealousy is good. I'm not saying that's the right response to have. I'm not saying that, but it's a reality and a human nature of a wife, especially if we're brought in a Western world. As much as you want to say we want to become more Eastern culture and things like that, does not mean we do it overnight. Now, for me, for example, I'm going to be 100. I'm okay with polygyny for other relationships. I don't, if someone came in here, and I'm really speaking, if someone came in here and had multiple wives, and we had knew someone that had multiple wives, I don't bat my eyes. I think it can be a very beautiful thing. However, my heart it's no, not in this household. My stance in my heart between my husband. Now, some people say, oh, well, you're really not for it. No, I don't dismiss it. I see it in scriptures. And like I said, it can be a very beautiful thing if the sisters can get it right together, because that would be very beautiful if two, three, four women or whatever are not batting their eyes at each other or not hissing at each other and stuff like that, but actually can say, listen, I'm going through this and this, and be able to build that bond. That could be very, very, very beautiful and powerful. That is literally a mini community being formed within a household. But not all hearts need to be forced to that, because that can break down, because a woman has the power of breaking down her home. Proverb says it. So those are just some of my thoughts in the midst of all of it.
Well said. Well said. Definitely. Yeah, there's a lot of benefits to having multiple wives. I mean, you think America wants us having a lot of children with the population control thing going on? What happens if a house is popping babies and there's like one guy in that house with all these women? You think that's gonna go very easy? That's probably not gonna be an easy thing. Nobody want us multiplying. I'm gonna keep you to one child. Black and Hispanics, y'all can have one child. Keep on putting fluoride and everything and spraying your clothes. And I'm just playing. I'm getting into conspiracy. I'm just playing with y'all. I'm playing around. All right. Very well said, wife. Yep. Very well said. I agree. All right, let's end there. Good chapter. Good talk. Good talk. Good talk.